I don't know, you're so young. How is it that you made a choice to retire? And was that a risk for you? And a lot of us feel like, wait, who am I in the world if I'm not the head of the billion-dollar company anymore? Right. So how do you think about even making that leap, that risk almost?
Yeah, it's a great question. And it was another calculated risk and a bit scary, right? Because you think about your career, you spend so much time at work. And then suddenly, okay, I'm not getting up and looking at the numbers and preparing for this presentation and talking to my team and, doing all those things that are part of your regular day. But I always had a goal to retire early. I watched my parents retire early. And so that was an inspiration as well. But I really just wanted the opportunity to have another chapter where I could travel a bit more, enjoy life, and find some other ways to contribute comfortably.
Yeah.
And so it was a risk, but I haven't looked back. I have loved it, Julie, like every moment of it. And I would encourage, I don't think it's for everyone to retire early. I don't. But I think for some people, it might be the right choice. It certainly has been for me. And now I'm able to just do some other things and find some other ways to contribute to the world.
Did you have your first board seat lined up before you retired? Like you knew that was no, you
I
actually
did not. I did not. Now, I knew it might be something that I'd be interested in the future. And honestly, the first year I did nothing. Despite headhunter calls or whatever, I just said, no, I'm going to take one full year and just focus on me.
Yeah.
And it was wonderful.
So I had a chance to do that in my early 40s. And I mean, I consulted, but I wasn't I didn't feel like I was like on the rat race in the same way. And boy, do I feel like that is such a gift for joy and perspective. And one of the things I mentioned earlier is you radiate this joy. Did you ever take that kind of any time, big chunk of time off before you retired? Or is this the first real break you'd ever had?
I did not. I never really took a big sabbatical or break.
Yeah.
I think even when I switched companies, I think at most I had 2 or 3 weeks off. So I do think there was something to having that break, that sabbatical, that time to reflect. And maybe that's another way for people to do it the way you did it, because you found that very rewarding as well. But I think it is important for us to rejuvenate, just find some energy.
Yeah. And yet all along, it feels to me like you've loved your career, like you've loved the work that you were doing. And boy, like the assignments you took could have stressed a lot of people out. So how did you stay in that loving what you were doing? I'm sure not every second, but like, what was the secret sauce to that? What's the perspective that we can all learn from?
Yeah, I think that is key, Julie. I mean, I have absolutely loved the work I've done over the years. Very passionate about marketing, very passionate about consumers, love to see businesses succeed, love to see businesses turn around, love to see my teams do great work and have successes and wins. So I've been very fortunate in that regard. And then I also love learning new businesses. So I was lucky in that I worked for big companies where even though you were at the same company, you could take different assignments that challenged you, gave you new sort of things to learn along the way. In fact, I would share a piece of advice that I was given by one of my first CEOs. And he said, when you're thinking about your career, you should ask yourselves 3 sort of buckets of questions. The first bucket is around learning. Are you being challenged every day? Are you learning almost to the point, are you mentally exhausted by the end of your day?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's one bucket. The second bucket of questions is about contributing.
Yep.
Do you really feel like you're contributing? Are you making a difference? Is the place that you're working, the part of the business you're working on or whatever, is it better off because you are there?
Yes.
And then usually as a part of that contribution, you feel recognized, right? And appreciated by your leadership team or your boss or your stakeholders. And then the third bucket is, are you having fun?
Yeah.
And his point was, look, everybody has bad days. Sometimes
Yep.
you're going to have a bad week. There's always some grunt work that none of us like to do. But most days, if the answer to the questions in those three buckets is yes, you're on the right path.
Yeah.
And I was a
Great
summer
question.
intern. I
Yeah.
was a summer intern when he gave us this advice. We were a group of MBA interns. And I found it so insightful and something that I've reflected back on lots of times over the years. I share with my mentees, the same advice because it's a framework that helped me.
Yeah.
And, I do think it's important to love what you do,
Yeah.
but also feel like you're contributing and that you're learning and having fun because you spend
Well,
so
and
much.
it sounds to me like you're constantly opting in. You're constantly doing the analysis, say, and I choose to be here. So there are no victims here. I'm going to choose to lean in for even the grunt work and stuff is not so great, but this is where I'm choosing. And choosing alone is an act of power, right?
Absolutely.
It sure is. Well, that's fantastic. So in order to get to this point, you must have, I mean, it sounds like you had big jobs and you probably made some decent money, but you must have had a real financial plan that allowed you to get there, to be able to do this. So how early did you start thinking about this? You said your parents were role models. Did you know in 25 that you were going to be financially planning to be able to retire?
Definitely knew right out of college that I needed to be fiscally responsible. My parents were very big on that. And, talked to some mentors that I saw who were very successful early on saying, hey, what tips would you give me? What should I do? Because I kind of like your house. And then I would say by the time I was 30 is when I really got serious, right out of business school, started understanding a little bit more that, okay, got to have a plan, and really partnered with a financial advisor who is spectacular and pushed me and challenged me. And I joke, she would give me homework and I'd be like, oh my God, I'm like busy at work. I don't have time for homework. But I will say she was absolutely right to push me on those financial checkups and decisions I needed to make. And I feel really blessed and grateful that, I had a good partner to help me think through those things, but also that I self-motivated to say, look, this is important. I think
Yeah.
especially for women, we still statistically, the data shows we don't make as much as our male counterparts. And it is so important for us to have a sound financial plan and to invest for the future and for wealth building. And that's why I'm so glad, Julie, the work you and your team are doing. I sat in on the research presentation last week and it was, very insightful and phenomenal. And we need to keep getting the word out to people that you've got to have a plan.
Well, and it's so interesting. I feel like your joy, you're opting in, the love of the work that you do, all of that is related to financial plan. Because to me, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, but like knowing that you have a runway or knowing that you've thought through this, it changes how you approach the day to day.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It is so important. And, again, very fortunate to be in the position I'm in, but it was hard work and it was.
You make choices every minute. Am I ordering or am I cooking? Am I taking the trip and staying at the Four Seasons, or am I going to stay at some place that's less expensive? Like all of those things all add up, and not having overextended yourself financially gives you a longer runway to think about things. So you can look at taking a calculated risk at work in a different way. If you have some cash in the bank and this is part of the longer term plan, you have a whole different analysis. So to me, that's extremely wise. And I imagine you can't disaggregate that from how you've lived your life and approached your work. Is there sort of a big life lesson? And we've talked about so many on this call so far, but is there a big life lesson that you'd like to share with folks?
I would say probably one of the biggest life lessons I had personally, and I would share with others, is to make sure you become comfortable being on your own and being your own person. I am so blessed with family and friends. And up until the point when I moved overseas, I was always doing things with family and friends. I was living on my own, but I always did stuff with other people. And it wasn't until I picked up my life, moved to another country, and suddenly I was in these great places and there was so much exploring to do. And I didn't really always have anyone to do it with. But I thought, well, I'm not going to sit at home. So I'm going to get out there. I'm going to go to restaurants. I'm going to go to theater. I'm going to explore. I'm going to walk. I'm going to travel. And it really grew me. It forced me to grow as a person and really be comfortable with who I am and spending time alone when it's appropriate. And I think it's important for all of us.